So I'll tell you what, Carmen, I'm going to go ahead and welcome you to the show. How you doing today?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm doing real good, actually. Very glad I actually get to speak to you today because I'll tell you what, I've been watching a lot of documentaries on you, looking you up online. It's not hard to find anything about Carmen Reed, I have to say. So I'll tell you what, Carmen, I'm going to go ahead and welcome you to the show. How you doing today?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm doing real good, actually. Very glad I actually get to speak to you today because I'll tell you what, I've been watching a lot of documentaries on you, looking you up online. It's not hard to find anything about Carmen Reed, I have to say.
Yeah, there's a lot out there. Some of it's not too nice, but I don't listen to that stuff, so.
Well, you gotta take the good with the bad. You'll get it wherever you go.
Absolutely.
But,
It's hard on your ego, so I don't even pay any attention to it or listen to it.
exactly. So let's just begin the show by, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll move on into your story that everybody's eagerly waiting to hear.
Well, my name is Carmen Reed. Carmen Reed McCone. I've remarried, and I have actually had an interesting life with a lot of paranormal, supernatural things that happened. I'm most known for The Haunting in Connecticut, A Haunting in Connecticut, however you want to call it, or the book In a Dark Place.
Okay.
It's on Amazon as we speak now. You can get it for about $5, I think. And it's an interesting read.
And
I wrote the first 4 chapters, but then the writer took over the rest of it, and he finished it. I'm working on something now. I'm doing a lot of writing because I think I need to have other things that happened prior to that house and since that house documented as well.
right. I'll tell you what, I'm going to get into your books, and we're going to get into all that and where people can get them and stuff like that, but let's get into it. Let's just dive right into it. Where did this all begin? Let's start off. Why did you move to this place anyways?
Well, my son Philip had cancer. He was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma stage 2B when he was 13. I took him for physical. He had a pea-sized lump low in his neck. I was pretty sure it was hormones because,
Right.
I mean, you get all kinds of lumps when you're about 13. But I took him. He wanted to play football anyway, so we went to the doctor, and when we went in, I was surprised when the doctor told me he was concerned and he wanted to biopsy it.
Okay.
That was on a Friday afternoon. And between Friday afternoon and Monday morning, it had gone to golf ball size.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing.
So, yeah, it was a very hard time. And when they came out and told me he had cancer, there's a lot more to the story, but for time's sake, I'm going to give you the abridged version. He had cancer, and they told me to find a teaching hospital. That was his best chance of success.
Okay.
At first, they thought it was non-Hodgkin's, and that would be a 6-month death sentence.
Oh,
He'd
my God.
only lived 6 more months if that's what it had been.
Right.
I took him, I'm a Catholic, and I took him for healing mass, and one was said. Then he went to the teaching hospital where he was diagnosed with with Hodgkin's lymphoma, and
Okay.
it was typed at stage 2B.
Okay. So is that a better diagnosis?
Yes, that's more curable diagnosis.
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, it's still not a good diagnosis.
No, cancer
No
never
cancer
is.
good. But at least it wasn't a confirmed death sentence. It wasn't terminal at that point.
Right.
So I was driving 306 miles a day to get him back and forth to his cancer treatment, which was a cobalt radiation treatment to his head, neck, and chest.
Right.
This stuff makes you extremely ill. And I was driving that far every day, and by the time I got home, he was just so sick that it was awful. So I talked to my husband. He could transfer to a plant in Connecticut, So, and his treatments were going on in Connecticut. So we started looking for an apartment.
Okay.
And I was having a lot of trouble because I had 4 children.
Okay.
And in Connecticut, they wanted you to have 2 children.
Wow.
So, I finally drove past this old, colonial-style home. It's beautiful. Needed some work, but it was being renovated, and it said for rent out front. And I was pretty sure it was out of my price range, but I pulled over, desperate, and it was being turned into apartments.
Right.
Well, I went in, and it was a beautiful home, and I found out the price. It was in my budget. So I begged the man to rent it to me, and he did. Well, it wasn't going to be done for about several more weeks, so I went on back to New York, and Philip had a brief break in his treatments. So we were just hanging out there waiting for it to be finished, and I had a nightmare. And the nightmare, I woke up and I grabbed my ex-husband's arm, and I said, I've just rented a funeral home. And he said, well, what makes you think that? I said, I dreamt it.
Wow.
And I was a big believer in dreams, and he thought I was silly. He said, oh, you and your dreams.
Little did he know.
Yeah. When we got to the house with our U-Haul, I begged him to go in before I took the kids in. I said, please, please, please go in and see if it was a funeral home. And he come out, him and his brother come out horse laughing and said, how could you not know it was a funeral home? See, I hadn't gone down in the basement because there were all kinds of workmen. I had just seen the upstairs, which was the director's apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else was. Well, it turns out we got the bottom floor, which was the funeral home.
Oh, wow.
And so he went in there, and there was coffin pillows and a kneeler and a table with coffin on, and just blood splatter on the wall and things like that. And I was horrified.
Oh, wow. I can't imagine that.
What are we gonna do? It's like, well, nobody died here, so I can't see where it would be an issue.
Good point. It is a funeral home, so it's still eerie, though.
So yeah, it's creepy. And we talked about how we could fix it so it didn't look anything like a funeral home, and then we made it fairly homey. But now our landlord wouldn't let us take these metal Venetian blinds. They were vertical Venetian blinds down. They were red and gold and white.
Okay.
And they always blew. That was one of the first indications that I should have known it was haunted. But to be honest, at that point, I didn't even really believe in ghosts. But we moved in and got settled. But before that, I was mopping the floor. And it had an old red cobblestone floor. It looked like little stones in a red brick type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Philip was with me. And I said, go pick out which room you want. And he was wandering through the house, and I put this water down, stick and stand down on the floor, and the mop water turned red, and it got thick, and it had a pungent smell to it.
That's
There was
scary.
a lady putting some crown molding in the living room down, and I went and got her, and I said, I don't know what's going on. Can you look at the floor? I think I broke it. And she came into the kitchen with me, and she bent down and touched it. She never said a word to me. She just turned around and walked out the back door and never came back.
I'm seeing signs already, man.
I'm sitting here looking at this floor, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, what could this be? And your mind races with all kinds of craziness. Did he put red blood on this floor, and that's why it looked like this?
Right.
And I didn't verbalize any of that. That was just private thoughts in my head. And Philip come up about that time. I just got paper towels over it, so he didn't see it. And he said, he was trembling. He said, Mom, we got to leave this place and go home. I said, son, this is going to be our home. Why are you trembling? He said, this place is evil.
Wow.
And I told him, I said, son, this is made of brick and mortar and wood, creature. I'm sure it's pretty old, and if it could talk, it could tell some great stories. Evil lives in the hearts of man. Now, this is naivety speaking. I was in my 30s, so I didn't have a clue that there was a real intelligent evil force out there.
Right.
But I told him what I believed at the time, and he said, "You're going to see." He said, "You'll see." And those were prophetic words to me. So we went ahead and moved in, and the first week, we all stayed in the mattress in the dining room. I don't even know why we chose the dining room, because it was still being renovated, but we had to get in the apartment because his treatments were starting again.
Right.
So we were sleeping in mattresses in the living room and just getting by until we got everything organized and they had finished the renovations. And nothing happened right away. But the first night there, Philip said he was hearing voices, and it was calling his name. He said it was a whisper, and it was saying, "Philip."
Oh, that's creepy. Oh, my God.
And I got concerned. So our next doctor's appointment, when he wasn't getting cobalt, he was just getting his CBC and some other, just to check up with the doctor. And I told the doctor, I excused Philip, and I told him, I said, "He's hearing voices in this house that we just moved into." I said, "Could it be, I know he's getting bombarded with cobalt to his head and neck. Could that be a side effect? And what should I do?" And he was kind of crass and cold, and he said, "You'll have to look someplace else for that."
Don't you just love it?
Not the cobalt. Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's an oncologist. I'm sure I wouldn't want to be in his world. But in any case, the voices continued. And he kept telling me about it. And he wouldn't sleep in his room. He would sleep on the couch. And my second son was living in Alabama for the summer. And when school started to start back, he came back. And then he started telling me about voices. And I was convinced that Philip had just spread the rumor and started it.
Okay.
And that the kids were just being terrified by their older brother.
That's understandable.
They thought he was walking on water, basically. In the meantime, my sister found out that she was ill, and I took on two of her daughters. One was 13 and one was 18, and they came to live with us as well. Well, they started experiencing things, and I was getting to the point where I was so infuriated because they'd say, "There's a ghost in here," and I'd run, and there would be nothing there.
Right, I can see your point. I
looked in closets. I looked under beds. I looked through the morgue. I looked, I tried my best to find that they were telling the truth, but I could not find it. And I talked to other people about it, and there were two camps. There were those that believed I should listen to them and find some help, and then there were those that were, "I don't believe in that kind of thing. It's just their imagination. They found out it was a funeral home, and it's their imagination."
Right.
So I didn't know what to believe. As a mother, I wanted to comfort my children, but the ghost stories on a daily basis were getting old. And I had two really young children. One was 3, and one was 6. So they were starting to get afraid and wanting to sleep with me and things of that nature. And I just wouldn't allow it. So the ghost stories continued. And this one night, I was in the kitchen, and I wish you could see the house. There was 2 doors, 2 entrances on the main level, and then down in the morgue area, there was also 2 entrances.
Okay.
One was on the main level, and one was a ramp that was 2 doors wide, and it went down about 10 feet. And it was a ramp to bring bodies into the morgue.
Right. That's so eerie. Just hearing
vault.
that. Just hearing that's where you live, and and you got a place where they used to bring the bodies in. Oh my God.
Yeah, nobody lived in the morgue portion of it.
Okay.
But there was 2 bedrooms in the front basement, and that was where they sold coffins from, an office. So that was not part of the morgue. But there were 2 big wooden doors, French doors. They didn't have the glass in them. They were solid wood.
Okay.
And led into the morgue. And then those huge, heavy, solid wood doors had a sliding bolt that went across, a metal bolt, at the top and at the bottom. So if you got stuck in between there wouldn't be any way out.
Oh, man.
But nobody was allowed in that part of the house, just for safety's sake. I don't know what kind of chemicals was used in the morgue and stuff like that. I didn't want any more
Exactly.
cancer. So nobody was allowed back there. It was basically used for storage. Well, one night, the boys were downstairs asleep, all 3 of them. And Philip and Brad come running up the stairs, the back stairs. And I was in the kitchen, and they were trembling, and they was like, "Mom, there's men downstairs." Well, I looked out the window, and our upstairs neighbor was outside in the garage smoking a cigarette or whatever, chatting with his buddy or brother or something. And I went downstairs, and they described the men so vividly that I believed that there were truly men down there.
Okay.
And I go downstairs, and they said that they were wearing, like, hoodies. But what they were trying to tell me was cloaks, but they didn't know what a cloak was.
Right, okay.
They thought, but this went to the ground, and it was brown. And I said, "Well, did you see their face?" And they said, "No, it was just black in their face." So I thought what they meant was it was shadowed and they couldn't see.
Mm-hmm.
Went downstairs, and there were some broken toys. There was one of those Roby, I think it was called back in the day.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then there was a antique embalming machine that I had slid up under the stairs. Somebody was supposed to come by and get it, but they never did, and that disappeared. Vanished that night. So I ran up and I got my neighbor, and I said, "The boys said there's men in there. Did you see anyone?" And there was a light dusting of snow on the ground, and they said no, they didn't see anyone, but they walked around and checked. And that's when we discovered the sliding bolt going up the ramp. And then the other one was a skeleton key entrance. And I would have seen anyone going out of near that because that was right next to the kitchen.
Right.
They would have seen anyone. So we never did find out where these men were, but things were visibly missing. Well, now in the morgue and in the rest of the house, over every door jamb, there were crucifixes with the body of Christ on it.
Okay.
They were about 3 inches high. And the door jambs were all dark wood. It had been stained years prior. And they were dark from age. Well, these crucifixes started disappearing one by one. And I looked everywhere for them. There was no tool marks. They were nailed in with those nails, little black nails. And they were just pulled out. And I couldn't see tool marks, screwdriver marks, nothing. Just the mark where the crucifix was. And as they disappeared, the activity got more and more intense.
Wow. You know, just hearing the story right now reminds me of earlier this afternoon when I was actually watching a documentary on you. And it was about when he got to this part, a crucifix actually fell off the wall during the interview.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yes, that crucifix was the first one I bought after I moved out of that house, and it was made of rosewood, and it was blessed by 3 bishops, and I can't even tell you how many priests.
Right.
It was in the house I live in currently.
Wow.
Hanging up behind me, and Dan Behrens and his cameraman were in this room that 12 by 12. And it got extremely cold in there, and they could hear growling, guttural growling in the headset. Whoa. And the crucifix flew off, and they ran out. And it took, I had to re-bless the whole house before they
man. Oh my God. Yeah, when I seen that, I could see you jump. I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing stuff. It's like something still following you, and we're gonna get to that, but please, continue the story. You said these, crucifixes were disappearing.
Well, after the last one disappeared, and that was directly over, the north and south coffin room were in the front of the house, and that was the one that was directly next to the staircase that went up the stairs. After that, it seemed like this entity could go all over the house after that last crucifix was gone, and all heck broke loose. My niece was upstairs in her bedroom, and she had been out. Well, let me back up. Philip started to drastically change, and I started taking him to a psychiatrist because he kept hearing the voices, and I was pretty sure he had issues because of his cancer and his own mortality. Anyway, so I started taking him to a psychiatrist twice a week, and he just kept going darker and darker and darker in his personality and withdrawing more and more from the family, which is understandable, but I was trying to help him. And so he got to the point where he was getting more violent, and I had to call his psychiatrist, sent an ambulance to pick him up and take him to a mental hospital.
Wow.
And the day that happened, the two big, huge ambulance drivers came in, and they got Philip, and they were walking him out the door. And they made me do it this way. It wasn't my choice. And we were following him. He said, Mom, don't do this. It's going to come after you now. And I got him to the place that he was supposed to be in, and they put him in this straight jacket cot. Basically, it was like a straight jacket, but it was a cot. And they took his shoes away from him. He said, Mom, please don't let him take my shoes away from me. And I was powerless. I couldn't do anything. And they put him in this closet-sized room and made me leave. And the doors locked behind me, and I was horrified and crying and in tears. So I go back to the house, and all the kids were in bed because it had been very traumatic for them. They cried when he was being walked out. It was very emotional. So they were all in bed asleep. I checked on them, and I went down the back stairs. And because I was very baptized and very cloaked in my religion, I had been protected. And when I went down the stairs, I said, all right, you SOB, only I ever used the real words.
Right.
You want to play? Come play with me. Which gave them permission from that point to touch me, because they didn't have it prior to that.
Ooh, I never thought about it that way.
Mm-hmm. They never had permission to touch me or to interfere with me. I was very protected in my religious bubble. And so that gave them permission to come after me, and after that they did. And it became a serious nightmare. I've seen and heard things that your worst nightmare.
What was Philip writing? I know he was like writing words down. I've seen a picture on one of the documentaries. What was he writing and drawing?
It was about being intimate with a dead body.
Wow.
I thought they were lyrics to a song because I know my sisters used to do that. I wasn't one that did that very often. But my sisters used to listen to a song over and over and over again and write down the lyrics. So I thought that's what he was doing.
Okay.
So, Philip was dyslexic. But what that means is that he did not write and spell the way we did. Everything he did, let's say he was writing skate, he would probably put S-K-A-T.
Okay.
And they may not all be in the correct order because he was a true dyslexic. He did not see all of letters, and he didn't see them in the correct order. And sometimes, the way they explained it to me, sometimes the words would actually even move around on the page.
Wow.
So he could not read or write.
I'm going to tell everybody out there listening to this right now. I'm sure you get a lot of people that's like, oh, that's BS, that's BS. I'll tell you what, I've done a lot of ghost hunting in my day, and I can tell you something right now. And I grew up in a haunted house. This phenomena is real. And I mean, until you actually experience something for yourself, it's very hard to believe. It's very hard to comprehend. Hopefully you never have to comprehend it because it's scary. It's extremely scary. So let's get into when did you realize, okay, this place is haunted? What made you, what stood out to you?
Well, the night that I came to become a real believer in this, I mean, because I'm developing questions now, is this real? Why can't I see it? Is this really tormenting my children? I mean, I'm going through a process of coming to the point of understanding it's real. But I'm not there yet. Right after Philip's still in the mental hospital at this point, and my niece goes out on the date. She's 18.
Okay.
She comes in. We're already in bed, right? And she comes knocking at my door. Aunt Carmen, it's happening. Aunt Carmen, it's happening again. And what she was talking about was it would pull at her blankets and slide them off of her, and it would pull at her gown, and it would pull at her bra strap, and just aggravate her. So I grabbed my bedside Bible, and I said, I have got to find something in the Bible to put this to rest. This has gotten so crazy. I've just got to put it to rest. So I follow her into her room, and I get her under her covers, and she's got some kind of Garfield nightshirt on type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I opened the Bible just to wherever it opened, and it opened to Psalm 23, and I started reading. Well, as I started reading, she sat up in bed, and she said, Aunt Carmen, can you feel it? It's coming. Can you feel it? And I could feel some kind of energy, to be honest, but I thought it was more her fear than anything.
Okay. And
she wrapped around me like a little monkey. Now I'm 5'3", and she's 5'8", so you could do the math with that.
Right.
She wrapped around me like a little monkey, and I peeled her off, and I started reading. I'm a Southern woman, so my answer to this is I'm going to read faster and louder. So I'm reading Psalms 23 faster and louder, and she does the same thing again. It's coming, and she wraps around me again. And I'm really feeling the energy now. The third time I pulled her off of me. Notice I said the number 3. Mm-hmm. Third time I pulled her off of me, I saw the perfect imprint of this huge hand go up on her nightshirt. I could see the nail beds, the knuckles, go up under her nightshirt, laughed as hideous, and went out to the back wall, flew through the back window, and I scooped her up. She was wearing a rosary. I scooped her up and ran to the dining room, and I called the Catholic Church, and I got an associate pastor.
Okay.
And he said, say the rosary and call me in the morning.
Right.
Well, now, at this point, I am so confused. I have to protect this child in front of me. She's mine. I have to protect her. She's mine.
Right.
I don't have a clue what just happened.
I'll tell you what.
Told me this could happen.
You got way more courage than me. I probably would have bolted out of that house so fast.
So I'm looking at this child. I'm calling the pastor, and he says, say the rosary and call me in the morning. She's got the rosary around her neck. My rosary that I've had my whole life has disappeared at this point. I can't find it anywhere. So we got one rosary, and she wears it. So I went to touch the rosary, take it off of her neck, and I've got the crucifix part of the rosary in between my thumb and my forefinger, and it shattered. All the beads were strewn across 2 rooms.
Right.
I looked at one of the beads, and it was like the wires were pulled perfectly straight.
Oh, my God.
Now I'm really, all the blood must have drained out of my body at that point. Because I'm like...
And she still has that to this day, doesn't she? Exactly the way it is.
Yes, she has it. It's still in the same condition it was when we picked it up that day.
Holy cow.
So we can't say the rosary, obviously.
Right.
So as a Southern woman, I go put on tea. Because my mouth is cotton dry. Soldiers have been marching in it at this point. Because I'm absolutely blown away. I'm confused. Don't know what to do. I've got these babies in this house. I got 5 of them. 5 babies. So I go into the kitchen to put the tea on, and as I'm coming back towards her, trying to put some kind of thought of what's going to happen next in my mind, she says, Aunt Carmen, can you feel it? It's coming. And at this point, I recognize the energy. I said, yes. I walk towards her as quickly as I can. She walks towards me. We embrace, and this black cloud engulfs us.
Wow.
The confusion that I'm feeling at this point, I couldn't tell you which direction I'm facing. Now, I am a true Catholic. I can say the rosary backwards and forward. I can say the Lord's Prayer backwards and forward. The Hail Mary, all of those prayers backwards and forward. I could not say the Our Father or the Hail Mary. I couldn't tell you which direction I was facing in that kitchen at that moment. I still can't.
Wow. That's...
Well, pardon?
No, I'm speechless.
I was too at that point. But, it takes a lot of energy for an entity to overpower 2 people like that. So fortunately, it only held us there, which seemed like an eternity, just seconds. When it released us, I ran, jumped in the bed. I didn't even sit down on the bed. I'm standing on the bed over my husband at the time, and I'm like, this house is haunted.
What does he say?
He said, oh no, the kids gotten to you too. I said, no, they have not. I just witnessed this. And he said, get out of here. And he kicked me out of the bedroom.
Oh man.
Well, he's my ex, so. Anyway, I had these people that I had worked with. One of them had given me an article from the Warrens, and it was about their museum. And she was saying, Carmen, I really think you should listen to your children. I think you need to call these people and have them come out and see what's going on. She wasn't allowed to speak to me anymore because she started having paranormal activity just listening to my stories.
Wow.
So people were starting to isolate from me because they would recognize their paranormal activity was going to their home. So I'm becoming more and more isolated, and I picked up the phone and I called Lorraine Warren, and she answered. And it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and she said she would be out the next day. And that's how I came to believe in the paranormal.
So Lorraine Warren shows up. What's her first reaction when she sees your house?
She thought it was a lovely home. It was, but
right.
When she went downstairs, see, we had a blood tank downstairs because that was the city atmosphere, and blood cannot be processed. It cannot be separated from water. So you have to separate the blood and keep it in a separate tank because it can't go through the sewer system.
Okay.
It has to be incinerated. So they had removed the blood tank, but there was a pit there, and it had a little drain there, and it was covered up with sawdust and a pallet cover like thing, a wooden cover type thing. It was like a pallet, but it was solid. And my little ferret used to go under there when there was ever paranormal activity because blood is sacred. Didn't realize it at the time.
Okay, interesting.
When she went into the morgue, she started experiencing things. Well, Missy came out from the blood tank thing and started running towards Lorraine Warren, and she thought it was a rat, and she was running up the front stairs saying, "A rat's taking me," and I'm laughing so hard I can't tell her it's a ferret.
Oh, that's hilarious.
There's a lot of stories with that ferret in that haunted house. So when she gets upstairs, I've already picked Missy up, and I'm taking her up there to show her that it's not a rat, it's actually a ferret, that she just wants to say hello.
Okay.
But yeah, she picked up lots of things in the house, and she told me that she thought that there had been some necrophilia that went on, and that there was actually, this is true, there was some children that were badly burned and that had come into the morgue, and we found documentation to say, yes, that did happen, and various things.
Okay. So not so good things took place there. Definitely not so good things took place in that funeral home.
Yeah.
Which, when you talk about, the way the hand was grabbing your niece, it sounds like there's some, sexual a little bit. And then from hearing the not so good things that took place in that, the funeral home, it just kind of ties together, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was sodomized in the house, and there was, they say it was rape, but I didn't feel like it was like a man's penis. It was an object, but I didn't realize that you could be raped with an object at the time, so I didn't understand that I was.
Now, what happened there? I mean, if you don't mind me asking, where were you when this happened? Were you sleeping? Were you...
No, actually, I could be, and I used to call it stinging, but it was in the genitalia area.
Okay.
And so I got highly offended when people called it that, because I was like, no, I was definitely violated, but not like that. And I still think it was more a fear thing, but I in the kitchen doing dishes, I would get, the thing would come over me, and I would just fall out on the floor. And I couldn't move, and I couldn't speak, but I was aware, and I was being stung, I was being bitten, I was sometimes taken to other places, and I witnessed several realms of hell.
Wow.
While I was taken from my own body. There was one point I was taken from my body. I was taken to, I called it the Desert Road of Hot Tears, where there were a lot of other entities that were deceased people, and they all had negative human emotions. Some of them were so vile that I would move far away from them, and some of them were very sad. And I was told if I left the path that I would be trapped there for an eternity. Now, remember, this is the abridged version. There's a lot more to this, but...
Right, that's what I wanted to ask you too. Like, in your books, what book can they read that, where they could actually get the full gist of it? Because this is like a very brief story of what happened.
What I'm writing right now will contain all of it, and it may be a 2-book series because nobody wants a really huge book. It may have to be a 2 or 3 book series, but I'm working on it right now, and some good stuff is really in there. And it also teaches you how to handle and how to recover. Because a lot of people that live in a haunted home come out with PTSD.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting that you say that.
And they have to relearn to cope and relearn not to be afraid. They can actually reopen, and this is how a lot of people get repossessed. I know that sounds ridiculous, but they get possessed again.
Right. It is what it is.
Because of the fear and the recognition that they're giving the entity that makes it come back. And you have to learn how to recover. And it's a process. And the Catholic Church actually brought me in, and Father George taught me a lot. He's deceased in heaven now, thank you, Father George. But he taught me how to recover.
Right.
Now, I spent 3 to 4 hours in prayer every day.
Wow.
After we got out of that house to keep it from coming back, and throwing protection, learning how to throw protection around my children.
Right. What did the Warrens say whenever they were in your house? Did they find any evidence? I mean, what was going on? What went on that way?
There was psychic evidence. They didn't find a lot of physical evidence.
Of course, yeah.
In a house that is haunted to that degree, and we had a radio DJ that came in. She was in there one night, and she had crucifixes pinned to every part of her body. And she thought she had some really good evidence, but it just disappeared. Cameras wouldn't work. Batteries would go dead. Radios would go dead. Everything would stop working. It knew how to manipulate the electronics. We did not get physical evidence, even though there was cameras brought in and there was photographs taken. There was no physical evidence. This thing knew how to keep from getting caught on camera.
Yeah, I heard you saying in a lecture one time that it's hard to take a photograph of you and there not be some kind of orbs around you.
Yeah, but most people don't. They think orbs are dust. So it's whatever your mindset is.
Right. And
There's generally something around me, but there's nothing from that time that I could pull out. Most of the pictures we had were Polaroid back then.
Okay.
And 9mm, I think they were called.
Right, exactly.
But with the little cassettes. But I've gone through all of them, and I couldn't find anything really usable.
Do you think that something was attached to you guys? Your son, maybe? Because I know he said it would go off. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Philip was gifted. He was a gifted boy, and he had twice before told me he'd seen ghosts. Once he was 3, once he was 6.
So this is before Connecticut.
Pardon?
This was before Connecticut. He actually said that he seen stuff.
Right. Once he was 3, and he was terrified of this patch of woods, and he kept telling me there was a ghost there. But I never saw anything, and I don't know that it was really a ghost there. He was 3. And then at 6, he told me we lived near this old monastery where old priests go to retire. And he said that, and it was in the mid-afternoon, and he said he saw him, but his feet weren't on the ground, and he didn't have feet. And he was just floating through the air.
I've always heard that children, for some reason, are connected to the other side more than adults. Do you believe in that?
Absolutely, I do. They have not learned to disconnect from the other side yet. And that's something we learn. That's something I learned. As I started research and as I started going through this, I had imaginary friends when I was a child, but they weren't imaginary.
Okay.
But everybody told me they were. I had to go back and verify some of the stuff, but it just slowly reemerged in my life after I moved out of that house. And the more I studied with the church and the more I learned, the more I remembered from my childhood, and I was very intuitive as a child. And I actually was intuitive when I lived in that house, but for some reason this thing was able to hide from me until I gave it permission to touch me.
Interesting. So you think that it all really began when you gave it permission?
Yes, I know it didn't touch me before that.
So what?
That would rattle dishes, and I could hear the phone, an old-timey phone ring, and I could smell popcorn.
Wow.
Was that a neighbor? I don't know. But the phone sounded like it was coming from the morgue, and I would hear my kitchen dishes rattle, like somebody was getting a dish. You know, because I didn't have a dishwasher, I had a drain board, and I would wash my dishes and put them in the drain board and put them away in the morning. And I would hear them rattling, and I'd go in there, and there'd be nothing there.
How much?
And I'd hear.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Carmen.
I would hear footsteps if I were downstairs, let's say making my son's bed or picking up their clothing or whatever. I would hear footsteps upstairs and go up there, and there would be nothing there. Those are typical haunted house things that happen. What happened in my house got much more intense than that. But that's the typical haunted house, is footsteps, hearing your name called, smelling smells that aren't there.
Right. And I want to get into more of after the house, post living there. But in the movie, it talked about something happened to you in the shower. And then there was the documentary I was talking about. They said that you guys had to it ended up you had to go to the shower in pairs because of something
that... If you came to my house today, you would not find a vinyl shower curtain in my house.
Okay, I believe that.
If I go to a hotel and they have a vinyl shower curtain, I tie it around the towel rack.
Wow.
What happened was I got into the shower one night, and it didn't just happen with me, it happened to several people. I got into the shower, and you know how a shower curtain, it can kind of blow and touch your legs?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Didn't think anything about that until both sides wrapped around my legs, and it started closing, and it closed all the way around my face, and I couldn't breathe, and I couldn't yell for help. Everything was muffled, and I felt like I was in a whirlwind, and this thing just wrapped tighter and tighter around my face, and I couldn't pull it off. I could not get free. Tammy finally came in and rescued me, my niece.
Right.
Finally, and it took both of us to pull that thing off of me.
Yeah, I remember hearing her say that on the documentary that I was watching. What is the name of that documentary that I'm thinking about?
The Real Fear.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, you guys and girls are gonna have to look that up. Yeah, I'll tell you what, that's definitely enough to put a scar in your mind to do something with the shower if you go to a hotel or whatever, because I can't imagine that actually taking place, but it did. It did.
It did.
So
it really did.
You move out of this house. Well, first of all, I wanted to ask you this too. The Warrens wanted you to go public with what was going on. Is that?
Yes.
How did that affect your life?
That was probably one of the worst decisions I'd ever made for my family. Outside of moving into that haunted house. It was very traumatic for the children. They couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't go anywhere without being recognized. And, I mean, you walk into a room and everybody goes, and I think they're being cute, but they're not. It's not funny.
Right.
You haven't lived it. You don't understand it.
Right, of
if
course.
All I heard was in a house, I'd still be there.
Right.
Trust me. You don't want to experience what I've experienced. You don't want to walk in my shoes. But don't torment my children over it, because you want to see a Texas tornado, get in between me and my children.
I could see that.
That was the hardest thing I've ever had to experience. And they had to live that down. And my daughter was 6 years old, and she was talking to her best friend, and the mother grabbed that child, didn't even respond to me or my daughter when we spoke to her, just grabbed that child and pulled her away.
Okay, so how is your life now? Now that you're out of that house, Well, first of all, let me get to this. This would be interesting. Actually meeting your husband that you're with now. You said you're remarried, right?
Yes.
Did he recognize you before this, or was this something that you eventually said, well, if I pop in this documentary, you're gonna see me talking? Did he know who you were before you actually got married?
Oh, yeah, I had to tell him. I mean, that's not something you keep from somebody.
Right, it's a major story.
But he wasn't involved in the paranormal. And the first year we were together, he went on a couple with, I was doing a lot of speaking engagements, and he went to a couple of conventions with me. He discovered he didn't want any part of it, and that part of our life stays separate. I do this, like he's out playing in his garage while I'm talking to you. He doesn't want me to go, so when I go to clear a home, he says, make sure you don't bring anything home.
What do you do now, Carmen? What do you do? I know you've experienced so much. You've done a lot of research. You have a lot of knowledge about this. Have you used your experiences to benefit, to help others?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I mean, there's this ghost hunter that contacted me just the other day, and she was saying there's this demonic stuff going on. I said, well, what? She said, I don't know what to do. I said, well, you bind it, and you return it from where it came. I said, do you know how to do a binding? And she says, well, I used to. There's no use to knowing how to do a binding.
Right,
you either know it or you don't.
I definitely don't know.
I teach right now because I'm convalescing from my surgery.
Okay, yeah, and I wanted to, you're doing all right from that, right?
They removed quite a few of my guts, but I'm going to be fine.
I actually had to have my entire colon removed in 2013, I believe, and had to wear a bag for a whole year. I'm bag free now. They had to do 3 surgeries, so I know exactly what you're going through.
I stopped 2 feet, and I'm thankful for that. One of the first things I did after surgery was fill for a bag. I was like, oh, great, I don't have a bag.
Right.
Yeah, I'm quite pleased, but, it's just one of those things. And mine wasn't from illness. It was from an accident.
Oh, okay.
And, so, yeah, it's one of those things that's just freaky in your life, and you come to appreciate your health. But basically, I help people with whatever I can help them with. I'm a Reiki master teacher.
Okay.
I do massage therapy, and I teach. I also do access bars, which is another great tool of healing. I do a lot of healing. I do a lot of teaching about the paranormal. Whenever anyone wants to talk to me about it, I'm an open book.
How do they get in touch with you?
Mostly through Facebook Messenger.
Okay.
That's the best way to get in touch with me, because I learned my lesson way back in MySpace. I put my phone number on there. I won't ever do that again.
I know what you mean.
It was only up there about an hour and a half, and I had more phone calls than I could tell you about. And some of them weren't so nice, so I took my phone off, and I have not put it up there since. And I've got a few people that got my phone number from that, and they still contact me.
Okay.
But for the most part, I will respond to you on Messenger. I'm not on there constantly. When I get the message, I will contact you. And I do have people that do not like what I have to say, because I tell you the truth, what you have to do, and how you have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And some people want me to have a magic pill and say, okay, I can say this prayer and you'll be cleansed. No, it's not that easy. You have to change things. You have to change your attitude. You have to change your outlook, and sometimes you have to change your lifestyle.
Right. I was actually quite pleased when you responded to me on Messenger. That's how I found you.
Yes, that's how most people contact me, is through Messenger. I do get some people that I will not respond to because either the way they word it becomes offensive or whatever. If you're going to come to me and ask me for help, one thing, don't from making accusations at me. To speak to me as you would somebody else that you want respect from.
Right, of course, of course. So what about any other websites that you have that you would like to put out there?
I don't really have any websites actively current right now. I just do the Facebook. I do Pinterest, but that's more about my dog. But I'm on Facebook quite often. I have a public page and a private page. I will not friend you on my private page because that's for my grandchildren pictures.
Okay.
But on my public page, Carmen Reed, I will speak to you, and I'm happy to talk about ghost stories. If you ask me to tell you my story, I'm going to say read the book or watch the movie because I don't have that kind of time.
Exactly. I mean, if you were to tell the story every single time, you would have no time in life. So
I would be reliving it constantly.
Right.
Every time I relive and I go back into that house, I open myself up to current attack. People have to understand this isn't something that goes away after an exorcism. You are still, as a priest explained to me, he says, you're born in a room and has no doors. Once you have been touched by the paranormal, you now have a door, and that door is open. You can push the entity out that door and shut it. The door doesn't go away. You don't go back to the way you were before you were born. When you were born.
Interesting.
And that door can be reopened at any time. So you have to be vigilant. And that's what people don't want to hear. They say, okay, I can do this, and then I can go ghost hunting. No. You can never go ghost hunting again. You cannot watch horror movies ever again. Because you run the risk of reopening the door.
So even listening to this interview actually runs the risk of opening a door.
Me giving this interview runs the risk of me opening a door.
Okay.
Fortunately, I know how to kick it back out.
Right.
But when I'm dealing with somebody that I've cleansed their home, I'm going to tell them to get rid of all their haunting movies. I'm going to tell them not to watch them anymore. Not even Ghostbusters or anything like that. They're not going to watch any of that stuff anymore. And they're going to have to live without the paranormal.
Right. So do you have a pretty good success rate when it comes to cleansing homes?
I do.
And the book that you're writing that you said might be 2, maybe 3 books. Do you have any idea when that'll come out? I'm sure you'll be announcing on your Facebook.
Yes, I will be. I've really started getting it in the order I want it in right now. That's what I'm working on while I'm convalescing.
Okay.
And I'm hoping by early spring I can have at least the first portion of it out. Like I said, it's going to be a combination of the things I knew when I was a child. It's going to be what happened in that house and what I've learned since then. And it's just a matter of getting it organized.
Right. So there's a lot more to your life than A Haunting in Connecticut.
Oh, yeah. But nothing can ever teach me like that haunting did. Because what I knew before that was all of the light. It was all light and angels.
Right.
I was a child. When I came into that house, that's when I came face to face with true evil. That's where I felt the breath of evil in my face and knew it was intelligent and knew it despised me and it would destroy me any way it could.
Clearly demonic.
And it continues.
I would say clearly demonic. Would you justify that?
Oh, no doubt about it. And demonic is this word. Knowing the evil and the evil intent and the destructive intent behind that entity, that being, because it's an intelligent being. It's not you. It's not fabrication. It's an intelligent being that truly exists as God exists, but it wants your destruction, your total destruction, and anytime I give it the chance, it will be there to do it.
Right. Now, I wanted to ask you this too, Carmen. How is everybody else doing right now? Are their lives fairly normal? I understand that a lot of you guys are probably recognized, but I mean, are they doing okay?
Everybody's doing great. My son Philip is deceased.
Yes, I'm very, very sorry to hear about that.
Me too.
I mean, I just lost my mother in January, and I know Philip's had a lot in his life that he went through. That's a lot that poor guy put up with.
He is fine now. He is fine now, and he comes around me frequently, and I recognize him, and I appreciate his presence, and
Right.
I love him dearly. But yeah, he's in a better place now.
And we're almost out of time here, but I'm sure Philip had some things that he wanted to say too. Are you actually going to help him out in these books by explaining maybe something that he would have said?
Yeah, there will be that. I did release the recording. If you watch it was on Destination America. He actually had his own voice. I had him do recording, and that was a month before he died.
Oh, wow.
And that's on there. That's on there. Look on that one's called The Fear is Real.
Okay.
One's The Real Fear, and the other one's The Fear is Real. But it was on Destination America.
Okay.
And at the end of that, he speaks.
I'm definitely going to have to look at that, and I encourage all of you guys and girls out there listening to do the same. I'll tell you what, Carmen, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I really hope that your book comes out soon because I'm going to get it.
Okay.
I'll tell you that right now, and I encourage everybody out there to get it as well because I'm sure there is so much more that, so much more that you say in the book than you can actually say in an hour-long interview.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you having me on, and I hope everybody has a great day.
I appreciate it, Carmen. Hey, God bless you and you take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you.